To another All Things MSP live stream. We are, as usual, we start about 5 minutes early so that we get the announcement out so that everybody can hear, that we're live and join and be part of the conversation. Tonight I have Rick Beckers with us, and we're going to talk about digital transformation and what some of the opportunities and what the things that MSPs should be thinking about today. Oh, and my live streams went live on my social medias, so I need to mute those real quick. There's one. Let's do the other one. Oh, that one's already muted. Great. It remembered from last time. Love it when that happens. All right. So if you're here, as usual, do a shout out in the comments. Let us know you're here. Looks like we've got at least one person already. So just go ahead and comment. Let me know that you're here. And that way we know, and because I hope it's not just me, right? But anyway, yeah, the live streams are live. The only one I didn't pull up yet was YouTube. So let me just check that one very quickly. As you guys know, this is just the 3 or 4 minutes ahead of time where I make sure that everything's running okay. And I do have a little something extra for tonight because I got a little surprise in the mail today. So we'll talk about that in a minute. All right, all 3 streams seem to be working just fine. So that's what we like to see. Okay, so what was I talking about earlier? I was talking about this. This is a Casio FX451. This is actually the calculator that I used in high school because it was cool because it flipped open, right? And had this extra keyboard. But even better than that, one of the reasons why we had these was because a lot of us were in computer classes already in high school. And this allowed you to convert between decimal, binary, hexadecimal, and octal and work in those. So if I needed to AND or XOR, 2 binary, sets of numbers, I could do that very quickly on this calculator. And by the way, it was the 80s. So this calculator fit perfectly in the inside jacket pocket of a members only jacket. So if you remember those, and I'm sure everybody who remembers the 80s remembers a members only jacket. I did find out today that they are actually still available online. You can buy a brand new members only jacket, the race style members only jacket that we used to have back then. They're $88. You can still buy them directly from members only. Who knew? Who knew? I might just have to get one. All right, so we're coming up on getting the real live stream started here. We got about a minute 20 left. And so if you guys have any questions, go ahead and ask them because, of course, we like to get questions ahead of time just to make sure that, we get those answered because these are conversations, right? That we're just having fun here. This is my passion project. I'm not making any money here. It's not the intent. I like to bring MSPs, vendors, whatever, all together so that we can have these conversations and we can just share. Speaking of vendors, though, because I want to focus these live streams probably more on the MSPs themselves rather than the vendors. I will be starting a series. They won't be live. They'll be recordings, and we'll post them to the YouTube channel, and then of course we'll post the links to the Facebook group as well as the LinkedIn page. But those are going to be more vendor. Allow them to give their pitch, right? Because we all want to know what vendors are doing. We want to know what they want to provide for us. And so I think it's going to be a good thing to have those resources available in kind of a more casual type of environment. All right, so we are counting down here. There we go. And let's roll the intro. All right, everybody, welcome to another All Things MSP live stream. Don't forget this live stream, and my camera's off here. There we go. That's a little bit better. Wanted to make sure that everybody knew that, because obviously I'm showing this on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Facebook. And so we're kind of in all three places in terms of where we just kind of group and ask questions and answer questions and all that kind of stuff. So Facebook. Over on Facebook, we have a Facebook group called All Things MSP. If you're not part of the group, go ahead and join. We just, a couple of simple questions. We vet you a little bit, but, it's pretty easy to get in. We're not very discriminatory. And then with LinkedIn, again, it's a company page. So All Things MSP, just search for All Things MSP, you'll find it. And then last, but certainly not least, because you guys, you know how I am about video, we do have a YouTube channel. So if you're watching this on LinkedIn, make sure you go ahead and hit that like button, click subscribe, and ring the bell to be notified when we do live streams or post videos. So anyway, tonight I have a guest that I think is going to really be important for MSPs, in that digital transformation, especially among SMBs, has been kind of a slow roll as far as I've seen it. And I think that it's an opportunity for MSPs who primarily serve the SMB market to be that trusted advisor, bring in those opportunities for digital transformation, and show the SMBs the value that it can bring to their businesses. Because so much has happened, and it's not just cloud adoption. It's kind of this everything is a service idea, right? I spoke about that at CompTIA. It's probably pre-pandemic. I mean, it's been a while, and just it's grown. And I think the person that we're bringing on tonight is definitely an expert to come talk to us about this. So I have Rick Beckers with me tonight, and let me bring him on. There we go. And let me make sure that he's not muted. Hey, Rick, you there?
I'm here.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me.
So, Rick, basically, the format here is we just like to have conversations. So, I guess, first of all, introduce yourself, introduce the different things that you're involved in, and then we can start talking about the digital transformation and really whatever else you want to talk about.
Okay. So my name is Rick Beckers. I own multiple technology companies, and I've been in business automation my entire adult career. So I started off as a damn fine typewriter repairman, and I made a great living with monthly recurring revenue because I had service contracts on all of the General Motors plants in Michigan at the time. And of course, as they went in the dumpster and got replaced first with electronic word processors and then computers, I had to make a decision. It was either to pivot into the computer environment or go back to work for the carpentry company that my family was involved in. And I made this choice because I thought it was the better one for raising a family. And I have stuck with it and evolved with it every step of the way. I was one of the first certified network engineers for that company that nobody hears much of anymore, Novell.
Yeah.
And then Microsoft came in and, like they do with everybody, kicked them to the curb and took over their market share. But I've owned retail computer stores. I've owned value-added resellers, system integrators. I still own an MSP. That MSP covers territories and customers in primarily the Midwest. We started in Michigan. I moved to West Virginia about 5 years ago. And so wherever I go, seems like my computer businesses go. And so we have customers in West Virginia. I'm now in Southeast Ohio, a little town called Gallipolis, which you well know.
Yep.
And
I was there for Thanksgiving.
Yeah. That's what you were telling me. And so we're doing the same thing here now, not so much on the MSP side, but we're building the community as a potential technology incubator, bringing many of my contacts and vendors and people to bear to benefit the colleges in the area and the cities and the community. Hopefully, improve their internet connections because they're sorely lacking out here. But yeah, I ran my MSP for a long, long time. At one point, I attracted the attention of the media company called, well, they do their shows under the name of Channel Partners, but it's now owned by Informa. And they tapped me to be on their advisory board for MSPs. They were a telecommunications agency, company, or trade show, and they needed a new audience with more attendees, and the MSPs were their targets. And so I owned one, and I have a bit of a marketing background, so they chose me. I sat on the board there for 5+ years.
Yeah, now channel partners is almost 50% MSPs at their shows.
Yep. So I must have done a good job. I was
Yeah.
helping them create the content that attracted the MSPs and the vendors that MSPs wanted to see and needed to see. So that was good. That was fun. I did a lot of speaking during that time. I sat on the Shark Tank board out on the trade show floor and met some new vendors that were coming into the pipeline of the channel supply chain. And so during that time, it gave me a great opportunity to see the channel, if you will, and I should probably do air quotes, right? The channel, which is, as most people know, it's the OEM or the vendor, the ISV, the beginner of the product or service. And then the supply chain goes to the what used to be called a master agency or an IT distribution company. And now they've lumped us all into a new acronym, which is called a TSD. So the master agents went sideways and picked up cloud and other as a service technologies, and the IT distributors did the same and started picking up telecom companies and buying them and writing contracts with the carriers. And
Yep.
so they met in the middle as a TSD, which is a technology solution distributor. And when I looked at the supply chain back then, I just scratched my head and I said, here we are in this technology industry. And yet I've never seen so many analog processes in my life. If I want a quote from most of these telecom vendors, I have to send them a spreadsheet. And then they send me back a quote in a spreadsheet. And I said, this can't be right. There's got to be a better way to do it. So this is back in 2018 that I set my goal to be kind of an evangelist in the industry for digital transformation and to try to make things better, more efficient. Um, and from the TSDs now, our sales are done through agents, right? Indirect sales agents. And those indirect sales agents consist of MSPs, telecom agents, VARs, system integrators, MSSPs, the security vendors, computer consultants, anybody who's got feet on the street that's working directly with the corporate customer. They've got the relationship. They see and hear the opportunities. They bring them back to the distributor. The distributor helps them to architect a solution in many cases, and then they price it and help to close the business. That's the model. And again, way too analog. What's happening now, quotes taking much more time than they used to. That in part, in my opinion, is because the master agents have bought each other up. And now you've got these huge mega master agencies with 400 vendors and 15,000 agents. And as they merge with one another, they've got all the idiosyncrasies of merging their systems together,
Yeah.
and cultures and everything else. So they're busy, busy, busy. And the complaint amongst the vendors and many agents these days is just, I missed the days when I had a smaller distributor that was paying attention to me and was loyal to me and responded to me and gave me a white glove experience and so on. So for me, that's my company, X as one. And you were talking about all things as a service. Well, back in 2018, I named the company X for all things technology and AAS as a service.
Mm-hmm. Well, it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's, in fact, it was probably, I want to say it was ChannelCon in 2018 when I gave that everything as a service presentation. And, I've seen, just like you have, I've seen the telcos buy up MSPs. In fact, that's what happened to me, right?
Yeah.
I've seen the master agent consolidation, and I think another interesting one that we're starting to see now is we saw it with master agents, kind of consolidating. Now we're starting to
Mm-hmm.
see it a lot more with MSPs as well. Have you seen the same thing?
Mm-hmm. I am. The 20
Yep.
isn't that pretty much a representation of what you're talking about? And there's plenty others around there. There's private equity companies that are just sucking up MSPs left and right, um, with the same goal and thought processes as the mega master agencies, and that is, let's buy books of business to grow our company for our shareholders. And it makes sense so long as those companies can keep up with the processes and the customer experience and meet the customer's buying habits, which is where I'm going.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. In fact, I talk about this subject a lot, especially when I'm talking to vendors, uh, because a couple of things you mentioned really ring true for me. The consolidation in the vendor space has been, we've seen integration issues there where,
Mm-hmm.
two larger companies, come together and maybe they even have duplicating products. They not only have to integrate financial systems, HR systems, sales systems, all of that, but they also have to figure out which products they're going to keep and which they're going to throw away. Now, I
Yeah.
imagine in some of the technology distributorships that you were talking about, they don't get rid of. They just combine line cards,
Right.
making it kind of even more complicated.
Yep. Yes, that's true. And but there is a maturing of this thought process, the as a service and the digital transformation. It's happening at a more rapid rate than what we used to see back in 2018. Right? We had the vision. We were early evangelists of the concept and adapters in as much as we could. But there are so many large legacy companies and carriers, telecom carriers, I would say, are the least automated in most cases. They're still running on um, systems with names that you and I would recognize, but anybody who came to the channel in the last 10 years might not even know what an AS400 is. And yet I know of a telecom company that's still running one of their divisions on an AS400.
Yeah. Um, I had a virtual CIO gig for a while. I'm trying to remember when this was. Probably 2005, 2006, where they were still using an AS400 to run a manufacturing facility.
Yeah. And I had a
So,
similar experience um, back in the day. That would have been the late 90s.
but you mentioned something else, and that was the combination of customer experience and the way that they want to buy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's actually a place where, especially MSP vendors, are kind of missing it a little bit. Um, you know, with most MSPs, especially the smaller ones, still want to do month to month contracts. They purchase much more like consumers than larger businesses. And so I think in some ways you have to allow for that because that's the experience that they want and expect.
Yeah. The digital consumption starts off at the enterprise all the time. And then it moves its way down through mid channel and then ends up in SMB. And that's when you know you have a full maturization of the buying habits. Um, what you've got now is you've got a younger group of uh, individuals moving into um, decision making stakeholder positions within companies, and they are now used to and desire to consume digitally.
Yep.
And it's not that they want to get out of the human to human touch and or relationships. It's they're looking at efficiencies, and they're not challenged by the learning curve that perhaps the generation before them was, when they were, for lack of a better word, forced to go to these digital systems. This is ingrained in them. They've had mice in their hands since they were 2. They learned their ABCs on a tablet.
Yeah.
And so, we're there now. And if you're an MSP, the writing is on the wall. Even for that matter, if you're a TSD, the writing is on the wall. If you're a vendor, the writing is on the wall. You need to
Yeah.
get digitally transformed and be ready to prepare to deliver for your customers, um, for, let's use a simplistic term, a technology marketplace.
Right.
And that technology marketplace might not even be visited by the end user customer. The MSP actually might be doing the purchasing on their behalf, not unlike an Office 365 admin account, right? That you're using to build your customers' email systems out. Um, you could do that, but what will end up eventually happening as the TSDs mature and give you these capabilities is that you'll be able to white label systems that will allow you to present to your customer a technology marketplace in your MSP's brand. And then you can build the initial marketplace for your customer, but then give them an admin account so that they can self-maintain, scaling their products up and down.
Yep.
So instead of calling a help desk or sending in a ticket to get, a new person added to the Office 365, they can go in there and tick the accounts up, and boom, 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 it's done. It's even reduced your workload. But from the customer side, what it does that many MSPs won't be aware of is it becomes a convenience from a management perspective in terms of managing their purchases, right?
Right.
If purchasing or the CFO or whoever um, asks, what are we buying and where are we using it? Today, that request comes in the form of a ticket or a phone call to the MSP to say, what are we buying and who's using it? And then you've got to run the reports from all your disparate systems and present that stuff to the customer, either in a raw format or something that you've prettied, made pretty. But that's all labor. That's non-billable
Yeah.
hours for your company that you could be using for something else. And so these systems reach down all the way to the customer, not in a way that is going to circumvent the MSP, but it's going to enhance and give a value proposition to the MSP.
Right.
That's what I.
Because it allows the MSP to still provide that value, the boots
Mm-hmm.
on the ground, the actual person to talk to, the consulting, the advice, the
Mm-hmm.
virtual CIO services,
Right. Yep.
but automate the marketplace, automate the platform so that the end user, the client, can actually self-serve the things that appropriately they should be able to self-serve. Like
Mm-hmm.
if they have a new employee sign up, they shouldn't have to put in a ticket. They should actually be able to provision that on a marketplace and it automatically do all of the things in the background to say, okay, we need a laptop. They're in HR, so they need this software. And then it just shows up a week later.
Yeah, you could take it to that extent. It all depends on how well the MSP configures the tech marketplace on their end,
Yes.
because they will have the back end login capabilities to to enable, create bundles, all of those types of things. The software isn't there yet at the mid-market level, but I'm road mapping it for Q2. So today we have centralized systems with partner relationship management in it, which is an enhancement that the vendor needs, that ties them to the MSP. And there's that component. And you manage all your marketing development funds and your deal registration and all of those kind of things in the PRM. And then co-branded marketing materials are in the PRM as well. So the MSP, that's a value to them. You go and have a conversation with the business owner or the CFO, and they tell you, I've got a problem in my business. And, if you know just enough about it, that there is a solution, a digital solution that'll solve it, you can go in and find that, or talk to your distributor. You can always pick up the phone.
Yep.
But then when you need to send those data sheets or whatever it is you want to send to the customer, you can just go into the PRM, and that information goes out via email to the customer, co-branded.
Yep.
With,
You don't
with
even
the
have
vendor.
to. You don't have to request it from your rep.
Nope.
Give a little plug for the day job. Ignite engages a PRM. We have a PRM, and we do
Yep.
all of those things that you were just talking about. We have marketing plans.
I'm an Ignite partner.
And we appreciate
And that's not how we got to this conversation.
No, that is not how we got here. But yeah, I mean, we have those things. We're building more and more of it out. It's still kind of early stages, but we do have playbooks, marketing material, the co-branded stuff that you're talking about, and it gives us one place to keep all that, and it allows you to grab it and use it when you need to, not at our convenience, but at your convenience.
You don't have to wait for your channel manager who's on vacation for a week, to get back in order to get the simple information that you would otherwise have at your fingertips with this kind of system. And as a technology solution distributor, we are actually going to be able to give our vendors a free PRM. So value proposition there. Then the tech marketplace value proposition for the MSP, and then value proposition for both of them is in the middle. We're also going to have a through channel marketing automation system. The PRM and this TCMA we have today. So that allows all of that co-branded information to be utilized by the MSPs if they want to go out and do some prospecting, either outside of their customer base or in their customer base, and take that co-branded information and send it out either through a single email or a campaign, or drip, social media. All of that stuff is there and enabled for them, so that they don't have to go out and try to cobble together their own HubSpot solution or that kind of stuff, and they don't have to learn it because it's there. And it's so easy to do, and it's already written by master copywriters of the vendors and everything else. They'll leave you the top paragraph, let's say, of a data sheet for you to edit, to tell your story as an MSP and personalize it, and the rest of it's all there and done and drops right in place, and out it goes in minutes.
Yeah. So I think if we were to give MSPs a piece of advice tonight, one of them would be, find out if your vendors have a PRM. And if you don't have access to it, get access to it so that you can utilize these things and take advantage of them.
Yep. And in time, that'll become more of a centralized portal versus 100 vendor portals. And that's basically what I'm telling you. This whole digital transformation today is happening. Like you say, Ignite is transforming, but it's a singular PRM for their products. And the next phase and stage will be where those are found in one distribution partner's portal. And think about other things that'll happen as a result of that. You'll have access to all of the vendors on the same platform. And when the customer logs into the MSP's branded portal, they'll be able to cross-sell themselves. Because you can turn on and turn off the vendors that you want them to see. And if you've got a stack of a dozen vendors and your customer's only consuming 3, but they're in there managing their 3 subscriptions, they're going to see the hosted telephony company that you've been wanting to convert them to, but they haven't. And you know how people will do things when they feel like the idea is their own?
Right.
Instead of you telling them that they should do it, next thing you know, they're calling you up or going, hey, I'm thinking of going to, I don't want to use a name, but a hosted telephony solution. And so I think there's just a whole slew of value proposition benefits for the MSPs, and not just the big boys,
Right.
all of them. And my advice to them is, like you said, start looking for your vendors, see what they have, see how far they are along on the roadmap to be able to have this stuff. When I look at them and talk to them, I ask them if they have an API. That might not be something that the MSP is that interested in, but the API capability tells me that I can then pull data directly from them, and it doesn't have to be double entered. And so that way the information that's on my portals is accurate and version controlled at all times. You don't pull down something and give it to your customer and then find out that that was last quarter's special, and now you've hung a price out there that you're going to get jammed up on. It can't happen.
Yeah, because
So
now we have this technical capability. We just have to make it work. And we have to get everybody to talk together so that we are getting the most current information and stuff like that.
And there's one area of the supply chain that I haven't talked about yet. And coincidentally, I did on LinkedIn with one of my colleagues who's well known in the industry. And it really needs to start there. And that is the events. So the events of our industry, and there are at least 100, right?
Yeah.
But the events of our industry need to start offering educational tracks on this very topic, and not on the digital transformation of a specific vendor or digital transformation of a specific distributor, but the overall concepting, and educate the MSPs and agents of all kinds as to what we've just talked about here, so that when they're out on the show floor, they can start looking for the pieces and parts to put together, and they're seeing it from high above, big picture, thinking of their customers and their businesses. Because this is not just about the buying habit of the customer, it's the efficiencies that the MSP gains inside their business as well.
Right. That's what a lot of this is about, right? Because we are so used to, and a lot of this comes down to behavior, because now we've been trained in our personal lives that if we want something, we can pretty much have it now. I mean, I ordered this calculator, used old calculator on eBay, and I got it in 3 days.
Right.
I get most things off of Amazon in 1 or 2, if not same day.
If you live, I lived in the Detroit suburbs a few years ago, and they had in the Rochester Shelby Township area, they had an Amazon distribution center, 5 miles from my house, and I literally ordered something and it showed up on my door before dinner. And that, the comparisons of that versus what we used to have to go through as kids, with the Montgomery Ward's catalog or the J.C. Penney's catalog or the Sears catalog that came to the door, and
or the little green army men out of the back of the comic books that you had to wait 6 to 8 weeks for.
Yeah. it's an exciting and dynamic world. Like any other evolution, it takes some time to whip it all into shape, and it gets convoluted because some people are just ahead of the others. That's always going to be the case. But I think as an industry, we really need to, you know, level the playing field and connect everyone so that the reason why these MSPs went into business is, yeah, they want to make some money, but they enjoy the technology and helping their customers with that portion of the uh, business challenges that they have. And if you make their businesses more efficient, then they can spend more time in that mode,
Right.
and quality of life comes out of it then.
Yeah, and it sounds, a lot of us are doing digital transformation in our own sphere of influence. But it
Mm-hmm.
sounds like what you're evangelizing and what you're road mapping is bringing those different entities together and creating
Correct.
a larger ecosystem out of it.
There's that word, ecosystem.
Well, you got to throw a Jay McBain word into
I
everything too,
know.
right?
Right on. Yeah, yeah. It's definitely, and partner ecosystem. Um, as I've explained it, the supply chain sounds like it goes from left to right. Excuse me. From the OEM vendor to the distie to the agent to the customer. And in reality, there are loops in there where partnerships happen with multiple vendors pulling together to create a bundle to solve a problem that can't be solved with one vendor. And same with MSPs. I know that there are MSPs in my sphere that are working with other MSPs, co-opetition,
Yep.
right? We don't necessarily need to merge our companies, but if I need help, I'm going to call John. John's there for me. He's a straight up guy. He's got integrity. Let's work together, solve problems. I'm really a community person, and so I think that should be ingrained into the industry.
Well, I think that's a lot for people, because vendors watch this, MSPs watch this. So I think that was a lot for everybody tonight,
Yeah.
which is kind of rare that we get that. Um, and we're kind of are at that point where we look to ask for questions. So if anybody has questions, go ahead and put those in the comments. Let us know if you have any questions. But one of the things, because all things MSP is primarily about MSPs, and you still own an MSP, so you're a perfect
Mm-hmm.
person to ask about this. What are the three things, putting your MSP hat on for a minute, that
Mm-hmm.
MSPs should be looking at in 2023? Not necessarily in digital transformation, although it could be, but what are the opportunities that they really need to take a hard look at because it's going to affect their business in 2023?
Well, in general, you need to maximize the efficiency of the business that you have now. It's just like anything else. Don't start trying to consume more when what you have already is is messy, right? So dig in, get automated, throw away. I tell my friends and colleagues when we're talking is weed things out once a year, if not sooner, because the cycles in our business are now frequently than annually, right?
Yep.
But be um, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, anyway, go through your business, weed things out, the things that are consuming you that don't have the margin associated with them, let them go. And I know it's hard because it was hard for me. It's hard to let go of the little 5-person law firm that's been with you for 10 years. But the fact is, as much as you tried to teach them the things that they need to know in order to not consume your help desk, they just don't care because they are focused on what they do and they know they've got an all you can eat support contract with you and they just abuse it. So
Right.
let them go, clean up your systems, get them all better attached, write your scripts so you can automate as much as you can from the help desk perspective. and then start looking at your vendor stacks using some of these new uh, benchmarks of digital transformation and whether or not I'll give you a specific area: cybersecurity. Cybersecurity, because it's such a new area, not new necessarily, but a new attractive area out of necessity. Um, there are a lot of players in that industry, and most of them came in with a better mousetrap for a specific area of the industry, and we picked them up because it was great, and it worked. But we might have 8 different vendors in our cyber stack. Now you've got the maturization of the cyber industry, and there are wall-to-wall solutions that are centrally administered, and they take on the endpoint security and the email security and the cloud security in one product, and it's easy to deploy and easy to manage. There you go. Get yourself into that. Clean up the rest of the stuff. You'll thank yourself for it. But that's the kind of stuff that I would be looking at. Get a little more marketing savvy. Not everybody wants to, but at the end of the day, really where I started off at the beginning of this conversation was um, all of these different areas have to become digitally transformed or they will dry up and wither away. If you don't want to wither away, then you need to compete. And if you're going to compete, you got to digitize. And if you're going to digitize, it's going to have to include marketing.
Yep. For sure. And so really what it comes down to, efficiency and profitability. And
Yep,
you're going to
those are the
gain that
bases
through the
of the
things that we
business.
talked about.
Yep. Quality of life, doing those things will improve your life, and it'll also
Yeah.
free you up to do the next project that you want to do. So if there's something that you're looking at that, I wish I could get into, but I'm consumed,
Yeah.
from dusk to dawn, I'm consumed. I'm working at home, I'm consumed. Clean up your act, free up your time, focus, and then go do your homework and get into that new area of passion for yourself.
Yeah, and there is that transformative step when you go, especially when you're a technician turned entrepreneur, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
typically you start out with a focus of going from problem to problem, billable hour to billable hour,
Yeah.
and that will only get you so far. At
Yeah.
some point, you have to get out of that rat race. You have to be making enough profit so that you can hand those duties off to somebody else so that you can start looking at the next opportunity rather than the next problem.
Yep. I mean, for me, it was as simple as Windows patching. Back before there were RMMs that did all that stuff for you automatically in the background while you were sleeping,
Yep.
you had to sit down and you had to manually click, Windows update, Windows update, Windows update. And so eventually I got to the point where I'd have 20 screens open, 20 servers going at the same time, all
Right.
doing updates. And I'm billing $150 an hour for each customer, 20 of them at a time.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, yes, this is how it should be done. And then
And there was a time before we had remote access tools. And
oh yeah,
so you had to go from seat to seat to seat to update virus definitions.
yeah, yeah.
And I talk about this all the time when we're talking about value pricing, right? The value of that service did not go down just
Mm-hmm.
because I, as the MSP, automated it.
That's right.
All it
Yep.
means is that I can do more now.
Mm-hmm. You should get paid for what's in here,
Correct.
not for the click of the clock.
Correct.
And and I'll tell customers that. They know that. If they're a lawyer, don't tell me they're not billing multiple customers at the same time, doing exactly what I was just talking about. And the paralegals are doing all the work, and they're billing it under the attorney's name, right?
Right.
And that's true of every business. And so, get paid what you deserve to be paid, or you'll never get out of the rat race. And wherever you can use automation, do so, reliable automation, and then use the human resources that you have, including yourself, for better things than these boring.
Yeah, the
Um,
mundane work.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
So, Rick, if people want to find out more about you, more about your companies, what you're doing, this whole ecosystem, stuff, how what's the best way to reach you?
Probably, well, see, I live off my cell phone, but probably through the websites of any of those companies.
Okay.
Cloud Tech One is the old diehard MSP. It's just Cloud Tech One, and the word one is spelled out. The distribution company, the TSD, is X as one, XAAS, the numeral one.com. And then one area I haven't talked about, maybe I should real briefly, is all of this stuff that's in my head, I teach to other people. So there is a consulting business. Primarily, it's intended for vendors to try to teach them to become more digitally transformed, because that's where it needs to start. Um, if they get digitized, then I get digitized, then you get digitized. Otherwise, it's junk in, junk out, right?
Right.
So that company is called channelsales.pro. And there I will take a complete startup that has built the better mousetrap, and I will teach them how to form their company and price it and go to market and scale. And that's a real passion for me, because then you get to see,
Yeah.
you know, you're like forming the bread as a baker
You
in a
should you
chef.
should probably get in touch with Sean Lardo, who runs the Pitch It contest over at ConnectWise, because they deal with a lot of startup vendors.
Yeah, I should.
It's basically a competition for startup vendors in this
Mm-hmm.
space, and so they would definitely benefit from that.
Look them up.
So, Rick, thank you very much for being a hostage here tonight and talking about all this, because this is the future of where we're going, right? This
Yeah,
digital transformation, yeah, I know it's a buzzword, but it's also a thing, because really these integrated ecosystems that we're talking about are so important.
yeah, yeah. Oh, I gave website addresses, but if you want to just email me, it's rb@xaas1.com. My Calendly is calendly.com/Rick hyphen Beckers. Get on my calendar. I'm an open book. You know.
Yeah. And by the way, fully endorse Calendly. If you're an MSP or you're in
Oh
sales and
yeah.
you're not using Calendly to make
Yeah.
sales appointments readily available for your clients and prospects, take a look at, look.
Put it on your marketplace. Put
Yep.
it on your website. Give people access to yourself, and it'll force you to become more efficient. But it'll also bring you that home run client that couldn't find the other guys in town, but you were available.
Yeah, I mean, just for an example, I booked 8 weeks of these live streams in about 48 hours by using Calendly.
Yeah.
And think about what it, and I only have one slot per week for this. So think
Mm-hmm.
about what it could do for you as an MSP, and allowing, you're completely removing all of the friction from a
Right.
client or prospect going to your website and then booking a meeting with you. And
Yeah.
and it removes all of that back and forth about trying to find a time, because it looks right at your calendars and makes sure that you're free and
Yep.
you control it.
Without even having a conversation.
Exactly.
Think
Exactly.
about that. You can
All right.
you can lose a prospective client on a conversation before they book an appointment, but you can't with Calendly because it's
Yep.
booked automatically.
Exactly. Well, thank you very much, Rick, for doing this, late into the evening. I really do appreciate it. And we'll have to do this again, because I want to catch up and see what this looks like in 6 months.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And like I said, open book. I invite anybody who's keenly interested in this same topic to reach out to me. Not every conversation has to be a transaction.
Right.
It's a community. So let's do this together.
Awesome. Thanks very much. Have a great evening.
You bet. You do the same.